I recently did a show on micro deceits. This show has nothing to do with that other than the fact that it got me to think about micro deceits or deceits that we don't really even think about. And so today I want to talk about micro selfishness, not because selfishness is micro or small. Sometimes it's huge, but in the idea that we don't even realize that we are being selfish. I think of the times in the past when I coached cheerleaders and we went to King's Dominion. And when it was time for awards, my co-coach and I told the team, go sit in the front because they were about to take pictures. So there's, 10, 20 teams that were going to be in this massive picture. And we just told our kids to run to the front so you could see them, and they did. Well, some team has got to be in front, right? Some team's got to be in the back. But the idea that we told them to sit in the front so we could see them better in the picture meant that someone else would have to sit behind them. And I think about times that I'm not trying to be selfish, but I'm just competitive and hard charging. And that it's the idea of that bigger piece of cake. I don't think about the fact that someone else will have to have the smaller piece of cake if I'm like, ooh, I want that one. Or I'll go to a donut shop and get the one with the most nuts, or, things like that. And I know we have choices, but it's these little things that I think about that I want. Ooh, I want that. And I don't say never, but in these instances, I am not thinking about the next person. Perhaps I should take the donut with the least amount of nuts on it and leave them with the most nuts for someone else. Take the smaller piece of cake in case someone else wants the bigger piece of cake, and things like that. What really got me thinking about this, and here's where I've got to be careful because I don't care about speaking about controversial topics. I just know my host may shut things down. But I've been getting angry as I've been studying for a podcast that I'm going to be doing this week. And that podcast is talking about the problems associated with doing things outside of God's order. For instance, homosexuality. It's not ordered by God, which led us to talk about procuring children. Two men cannot have a child. They have to have someone else give them that child, an egg, a womb, or for surrogacy, or people struggling with infertility. In many cases, that child is born of someone else's sperm, or someone else's egg, or maybe it's the husband and wife's egg and sperm, but it was a different uterus. And as I'm studying with this book. It's called Them Before Us. This is an organization founded by Katie Faust, who is herself the adult child of two lesbians. One is her biological mother and her mother's partner, and she's a great relationship with her mom and with her biological dad. But she started recognizing the wounds that come from this. So that opened up this whole can of worms. I will be the first to admit, when I was younger, I was thinking, oh, if my daughter couldn't have a child, I would have it for her. I would surrogate that child for her. And perhaps if I was the child born of that surrogate pregnancy and I realized my grandma was really the one that birthed me and I could be with grandma the whole time and there wasn't voids, and maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But as I study and as I see the statistics on this, it is just wretched what children of surrogacy have to go through. There's always a void, 100%, because it is based on prescribed abandonment, right? Anyway, I think I'm talking too much about next week's show or this week's show. But what I realized, because as I was thinking of this, I have a family member who had cancer and saved her eggs, and she wants to go to a sperm bank and procure a child. She's a sweet girl. I love this family member very, very much, as a matter of fact. And she likes me a lot, I think. But as I talk about this, I say, Sally, what about the child? The child is never going to know who his or her dad is. And let's just say cousin, my cousin said, that's a minority. I'm sure most of them are happy. No, first of all, what I said to her was, Oh, even if it's 1 in a million, are you willing to create a human being knowing that that child could be the one who is so upset that he or she doesn't know their dad? I think about the selfishness in that. No, I'm willing to gamble with your happiness, so that I can have what I want. But most of them are not. Most all of them, based on the people I've talked to, and I've talked to several, children born of surrogacy, children born of sperm donors, they all have this wound of abandonment, of wanting to find their other parent, of it's not just about being loved. It is about my biology, my actual, the human, the other half of me. So I don't want to divert too much off of that because I'm going to really be talking a lot about it when I film the full podcast. But that led me to think about this, is we humans, even in our own desire to love, are sometimes so blinded by our own selfishness. This cousin of mine, this sweet, sweet girl, is so very nice, already a mother, loves her child, wants to love another. There's no sin in wanting to love. But is there a sin in going outside of God's order and then thinking only of the self? How selfish are you? Are you like me, where you don't even think about it and you're like, ooh, let me grab that big piece of cake. Ooh, I want to make sure I get my sleep. Oh, or let's do this. I do this all the time. I interrupt people. I don't mean to. I'm excited. I'm just like, oh, I don't mean to interrupt them. I'm excited. I want to get my point out. And people, they're like, oh, okay, we see that. We get it. But in and of itself, cutting people off still somewhere says, even though you want to get your point out, Christine, what if they wanted to get their point out and you cut them off, or you decided that you excitedly wanted to tell your thing? Do you let other people talk? Do you say, wow, I don't want to forget what I was going to say, but what if my saying what I was going to say made them forget what they were going to say? In that action, I'm being selfish. I'm choosing myself over you. What about being late? What if people were expecting you at a certain time and you came late because, well, you just wanted to run that extra errand, maybe go to the post office? You weren't thinking about hurting the other person in any way, shape, or form. But in thinking to yourself, I want to run this other task, we cease to think about the person who's waiting for us, because is their time just as precious as our time? Those 15 minutes, they could have been doing something else, but they were waiting for you. I've done that too. I have pondered in the past decade or so just how selfish I am, just how selfish humans are. And I realized in my husband and my troubled years, we were both two very selfish people. And of all my siblings too, I think about it, I'm like, wow, I'm probably the most selfish. Maybe, maybe not, but as I see it. And selfish people have a hard time with other selfish people because we're all vying for getting our own needs met. I wish I could think of more examples right now, because I think our world is rife with examples. When you're driving, do you selfishly try to get that spot in front of that car, or do you let them in front of you? It's just minor, I don't want to say minor, but micro selfishnesses. We get into our own world, we do our own thinking. I want to get to the front of that line. Is not thinking any ill intent towards the other person. But in doing so, the other person has to be second. And the Bible tells us, make everybody else first. Love your neighbor. Do for them. And then worry about yourself. And that challenges me, because I'm thinking, when I'm driving, I should probably let as many people in front of me as possible. When I'm talking, I should shut up as much as possible and constantly ask other people, well, what are your thoughts? And then shut up. I need to constantly be thinking about others when I'm making decisions about where I'm going out to eat. We do this on Sundays. We have a group of us that goes out to breakfast, and I'm like, I'm not going anywhere at this restaurant. I don't want to be there for whatever reasons. I hate that restaurant. Well, what if someone else loved that restaurant? Now, we usually come to grips with something that everybody wants, but someone's sacrificing something. What are your micro-selfishnesses? I want to challenge you to think about it. Go through your day today, yesterday, and think about, in what ways did I put myself first? In the smallest of ways. I just got to do this first. I just need this. And we do need things. There are times where like, I need this moment for myself or I'm going to lose my mind. Look, you got to take care of yourself. But what if you're tired and the other person's tired too? Whose needs do you allow to be met first? It's a conversation I think is worth pondering. And I really would love to hear your thoughts. I can't be alone in this, right? Well, let me know. We all have to strive to be more like Christ, and Christ was completely selfless. Completely. He gave his life for us. In what ways have you noticed selfishnesses in yourself or even others that you didn't really before perceive as selfishnesses? And then further, what are you going to do to become more selfless? Inquiring minds want to know. So that's it. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching this informational Bacon Bit. And remember always to live your life sunny side up.